men being pulled over. And then they say, okay, homicide. So more men suffer from homicides than females from being killed. This tendency towards lack of judgment and consideration of consequences may contribute to detrimental lifestyle decisions among young men. And that's why we talk about socioeconomic factors, and then leading to things such as smoking, drinking to excess. And it really doesn't have anything so much to do with socioeconomic factors either. It has everything to do with based on science, or when we actually look at things and when we start to break things down as to what are the contributing factors. One of the contributing factors, again, is men have much more dangerous jobs. Men far outnumber women in some of the riskiest occupations, including military combat, firefighting, and working at construction sites. And just hold on, we're going to get to the meat and the bones of keeping you here. This is about what the statistics are and the facts are. But then we're going to go into how we keep our men here and what lifestyle changes and habit changes relatable to nutrition will keep you here. Because we're going to get into the disease aspect. Okay, more men die of heart diseases more often at a younger age. In fact, men are 50% more likely than women to die of heart diseases. The fact that men have lower estrogen levels than women may be part of the reason, but medical risks such as poorly treated high blood pressure or unfavorable cholesterol levels may contribute as well, because a lot of times men don't go to the doctor as much as women do. A woman will go to the doctor before a man. And men are larger creatures than women across species, all across the world and life and things of that. Most of the species are larger. Even animals tend to die younger than smaller ones. Although the magnitude of this effect is uncertain in humans, it may work against male longevity. Okay, because you got to look at your mass body index. You have to look at those things, like what's the difference if you're carrying too much weight. And this is something we've talked about testosterone. These are different things. And life is stressful. Life is super stressful. And at this time, more than any time in the history of the world, this is one of the most stressful times that we've known as human beings. We've got people dying every day. Hospital, ICUs full to the brim all over the world because of coronavirus, because of that. And this is true, that these things are happening, and that is enough. Besides for living in the world that we already live in with the stresses, that depression is considered more. And this is something that's considered more common among women, and women take more non-fatal suicide attempts. So like when they decide, and it's a statistic about it, some attribute this to the tendency for men to avoid seeking care for depression and cultural norms that discourage men from seeking help for mental illness. A woman will go and get help before a man. The statistics are there. And sometimes being less socially connected for reasons that aren't entirely clear. People with fewer and weaker social connections, which tend to include men often than women, tend to have higher death rates. And when I started reading this, I was blown away. And so what happened was I was reading this and I said, okay, so what are we going to do about all this? We got to dig deep. We got to think deep, and we need to do some serious research on how and why and what. The 3 W's. Well, I call them the 3 W's. Learned that in school. According to the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, men are more likely to skip routine health screens and less far likely than women to have seen a doctor of any kind during the previous year. And so this right here is an uneven playing field for boys starting early. And we even took it down to the science of the Y chromosomes tend to develop mutation more often than the X chromosomes, and lack of a second X chromosome in men means that the X-linked abnormalities among boys are not masked by a second normal version. So we relate that to survival in the womb is also less reliable for male fetuses for uncertain and probable multiple reasons. Developmental disorders are more common among boys. Some of this could shorten life expectancy. And I was like, what the heck? I need to make sure that we look at the science. I need to make sure we connect it to nutrition. And that is what this is about, connecting nutrition to the science. And it's all evidence-based. It's not something that we're just telling you to, it's not something that we're just telling you to go and to go and do. It's not something we're doing any of that. We're not doing that. So it's not something that we're doing. We're telling you this is really based on science, and we're bringing the truth to you. So what can we do to help our men live longer? Okay, while there's not much that can be done about some of these factors, others are modifiable. There's other things that we can do by habit change and taking time to understand the things that we can do better. For example, since men tend to avoid medical care far more often than women, getting men to report symptoms like, how are you feeling? Do you ever wake up and say, baby, how are you feeling today? I ask my husband every day, how does he feel? I ask him every single day, how do you feel? Let me check in and see what's going on with you. Just because you look okay doesn't mean you feel okay. It doesn't. And so sometimes it's about talking and checking in and getting our men to go for regular follow-ups for chronic medical problems. And being on your medications, such as high blood pressure, can counter some of the tendencies for men to die younger. It's also worth noting that survival gaps between men and women reflect an average tendency among large numbers of people. In fact, plenty of wives predecease their husbands. Meaning that they die before their husbands. And these are some of the risk factors: smoking, diabetes, and a strong family history of breast cancer can outweigh the general tendency for women to live longer. Okay? And so that's another episode that we will talk about. That's another segment we're going to talk about those risk factors for women. But right now, men, we're dedicating this to you. Perhaps we'll be more successful in the future in avoiding preventable premature deaths among men and women if we start to practice a different type of lifestyle. And because many of these efforts will have a bigger impact on men, the gender gap in the elderly may eventually narrow when it comes down to men dying quickly at the numbers before women. And especially as men and women age out, where the average gets bigger. So the one thing I want to focus on is understanding the science of our bodies as human beings and men and women. Because some of what I'm going to share with you in depth, I've never gone this deep before, but it's going to be a minute before I get finished with this episode. And why? Because I love you and I want to pour into you today. Many of you I will never know. Many of you I'll never meet. Many of you I'll never see. But at least I touched you in some type of way. How does disease start in our bodies? So I want to know, how do they start? So I focused on an article I was reading in Live Science. I told you I read and research most of my day. And 75% of my day is spent reading, researching, working on things. I'm like a sponge, and I'm constantly on a journey of evolution and learning. I'm constantly, because I want to understand more. Well, however the capacity of the human brain is, I want to know I'm using it. I want to know that I'm using it for the right reasons in the right ways. And I want to be able to touch people in a meaningful way. So when I started researching this, the common denominator is free radicals. So what are free radicals? Well, we're not talking about radical people running around being radical. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about science. And listen to this. The body is under constant attack from oxidative stress. Oxygen in the body splits into single atoms when unpaired electrons. So what we're saying is that we have one atom. We have atoms and electrons in our bodies. And when they split, electrons like to be paired. So these atoms, called free radicals, scavenge the body to seek out other electrons so they can become a pair. This causes damage to cell proteins and DNA. That's where it gets started at. And so when this starts, and because of when these things start to happen, free radicals are associated with human disease, including cancer, atherosclerosis, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and many others. And they also may have a link to aging, which has been defined as a gradual accumulation of free radical damage. According to Christopher Wanjek, the bad medicine columnist for Live Science. And that's what we call him. That's what he's referred to. Substances, but he's not a bad person. I think it's just something that, because he's a columnist, that's what his name is, his tagline. Substances that generate free radicals can be found in the food we eat, and that's what we're going to get down to today. Understanding what you eat, why you eat it, and what it does is what we're going to dig into. We're going to go deep into this thing today. And it can be linked to, again, food that we eat, free radicals, medicines we take. And that's the reason why I'm always telling people, do you detox? Me and my husband drink a detox tea every single morning. Every single morning. And I'm going to get more into that, why we drink the tea every morning. And also, it's environmental. It could be linked to the air we breathe and the water we drink. According to the Huntington Outreach Project for Education at Stanford University, these substances include fried foods, alcohol, tobacco, smoke, pesticides, and air pollutants. Free radicals are natural byproducts of chemical processes such as metabolism. According to Dr. Lori Wright, a registered dietitian and an assistant professor of nutrition at the University of South Florida, said basically she thinks of free radicals as waste products from various chemical reactions in the cells that, when built up, harm the cells of the body. Did you hear that? They harm the cells of the body. And these are waste products from various chemical reactions in cells. Free radicals are also associated with aging. The free radical theory of aging states that we age because of free radical damage over time. Okay, and according to Dr. Lori Wright, free radicals can damage DNA instructional code, causing our new cells to grow incorrectly, leading to aging. Not to say that we're not going to age, naturally, but sometimes you can put twins together and one looks so much older than the other. And it's all about how you take care of your body. The body you're in today is going to be the body you're going to be in tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. So if you knew you were damaging your body, would you change it? Would you create habit change? Absolutely. Most of us would. The ones of us that have common sense, we would do it unless we didn't know how. And so that's what this episode is about. But if you had someone to extend an olive branch to you, you would do it. And if you haven't been doing it, if you listen to this episode, start doing it, because I'm going to give you some knowledge today. It's going to take me a little bit of time to get through this one today. According to a 2010 article in the Method of Molecular Biology, there are no officially recognized symptoms of oxidative stress. According to naturopathic doctor Danielle Wilson's website, however, symptoms include fatigue. Are you having a headache? Does noise hurt you? Are you have a sensitivity to noise? Memory loss and brain fog, muscle and joint pain, wrinkles and gray hair, vision trouble, and decreased immunity. So what you want to start looking at is this happening to me? Am I suffering from oxidative stress? Let me repeat it. Some of the symptoms include fatigue, headaches, noise sensitivity, memory loss, brain fog, muscle and joint pain, wrinkles and gray hair, vision trouble, and decreased immunity. If it was something you could do about all of this, besides for aging with time, in a normal aging process, would you do it? Yes, you would. So we're going to dive deep. We're going to dive off the diving board and we're going to get into it. But I'm still going to give you as much information as I can along the way. It is not possible